Great. Hi, Casey. So wonderful to see you.
Wonderful to be here. Thanks for the
I
invite.
I am so excited to introduce you today to our members. Some of them you've who've already worked with you, and as you were a teacher in Verse this year, but also a few of our members have worked with you before. So you are known in our community and in our circles of being a very important entrepreneur and a very important businesswoman. And as I've shared with many people, you're one of my business advisors as well. So I'm really honored that you get to communicate to all of us. And for anyone who's listening, your secret sauce to business. There's not really one secret sauce, I'm sure you'll share. In these nonlinear paths we take as healers and entrepreneurs. So this is really exciting for me to be able to interview you and talk with you. And then our members will be able to ask questions um, from you and listen to some guidance that you have to share at the end of this interview. So, Casey, I would love for you, I'm just pulling my notes up here. I know I put together a lot of notes for this, so I know that's going to flow hopefully really organically. Knowing you well, I know it will, and I know that you'll have so many gold nuggets to share. But I'm just curious if you can share a little brief overview of your journey of how you got here. And I would love to hear kind of the dirty details from how it got started in the beginning, one of your first businesses. And I know it's going to go into a lot of little roadblocks, which we'll get into later, but I would love to just hear your version of your story.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, we live in such non-linear times. Every day it becomes more and more non-linear. So I feel like this moment we're stepping into now is really built for us. I feel like a lot of the people in our audience and our communities, the people we work with, have really, this world isn't easy for them, because we are very feminine and spirally and non-linear, and we're moving into a time that suits us. It's kind of built for us. And so I'm really, really excited to share, because so much of, I think, going off the beaten path as I have in business is actually exactly where I'm supposed to be. And yes. So I'm going into my 31st year in the healing arts, which is crazy to me. So I started at 19. My first quote unquote modality was Reiki. I got very lucky and serendipitously met my Reiki master who attuned me in that art. Soon thereafter, I started doing body work. And so my practice was largely based in the somatics and massage therapy for many years. Prior to that, I wanted to be a doctor. I grew up my whole childhood thinking I wanted to be a doctor. And as a consequence of that, when I kind of got taken to the other, I thought the other extreme side of alternative healing, no licenses, no status, no nothing. I was really hung up for a lot of my 20s. I really had a hard time with that, that I was only a massage therapist, that I wasn't a business person, that I wasn't a professional. And I really had a hard time with that looking back. But now, in hindsight, I can see it was the fastest, best preparation and path to what I do today. If I had gone down a traditional path of traditional business and a traditional profession, I would have had so much deconditioning to do to get back to where I started at 19. Because what I do today, I realize it's so much intuition, it's so much energy, it's so much tapping into our internal guidance system is the biggest guidance in hindsight for my businesses over time. So I had a private practice in body work and energy work for many years. I grew that to a certain size and I added products to it, built a product business. Then I wrote a book in that field. Then I kind of got tired of being solo and decided to open my first studio in wine country in California. So we started there with four massage therapists was our founding team, grew that to another, and another. And we had opened over 8 years. We opened our fourth studio in 8 years and expanded to a team of 84 practitioners, doing body work, meditation, yoga, sound healing, all the things. And then the pandemic hit. And Laura knows how that goes. We pivot and we try to save, we kind of do it all to get through that time. And my quote unquote pivot, just I thought to tide my studios over. We all had enormous overhead and rent and staff to take care of and rent to pay. So I created an online business just I thought to kind of tide me over. And when I thought about like, well, what can I do? We can't touch people. We can't gather. Microdosing was something that had been exceptionally profound in my own healing. It was something I did quietly. I didn't really share it with anybody outside of our studio team. And I was kind of called to, I just did two pilot groups, to bring people together to heal online and to keep the community going and to resource the studios, not knowing that that was the baby beginning of kind of my life's work and what I was supposed to do. So I ended up losing the studios, losing everything, due to the pandemic closures. But out of that came our microdosing programs. We now have a podcast, we now have a global community, and I now train other guides internationally to do microdosing guideship today, 5 years later.
You are such an inspiration to me, and you were the person that got a hold of me quickest when I was shutting down Scarlet Sage. I will always remember your advice. And I know there's people in our community that have had to recently actually shut down their businesses as well. And I used that same advice that you shared with me, which was do it quickly because it's going to be so taxing for you as an individual and for your customers and your community that the shorter you give them notice and the time that you shut your business down, the healthier it is. And I'm so grateful that you spent the time. You called me, you talked me through it with this wise wisdom of you having just gone through it. What a year or two before that, right? Um, because what I think you have that so many entrepreneurs are looking for is the clarity and the guidance that you've already taken in your career and building the studios and doing something from the ground up and making sure you had the right community and the right people around you and realizing that this isn't working for me. I'm not willing to sacrifice my entire well-being to keep something afloat. And you really shared that advice with me and you really iterated your experience of you got to stay healthy in this process. And there are factors outside of your control that you are not going to be able to manage right now. And I'm so grateful for your advice and your wisdom because it's hard earned wisdom. I'm curious if you can share a little bit about that closure in your own words that make you a better entrepreneur today.
Mm, great question. And thank you, by the way. um, I think at this point, the greatest gift of that is I have no fear of failure at all. At all. Like, I really learned that everything you can show our job is to show up and give our best effort, right? Kind of bring all of our skills and our experience and our presence to what we're doing. But with if there's external factors that we can't overcome, to trust that it's pushing us into something else. And so I've really learned that like even a great failure, a big publicly spectacle failure, right? That a lot of people have a lot of feelings around is ultimately such a gift. And to keep trusting that. And so so much good came out of it, that just knowing that, okay, I can kind of go do this strange, weird thing that I don't really know how people are going to receive it or ready to receive it. Knowing that if it doesn't work out, we'll just take that same spirit that we carry and funnel it into something else. Business to me is always, it's more of an art than it is a business. And so I just view like creating a sustainable business is just what enables us to continuously create and expand and create and try different things. So it's very freeing that way.
How long do you think it took you from shutting down Solstice to feeling that confidence that you are comfortable with today? And of course, it might not have taken 5 years. It might have taken you 5 years, but I'm curious when that shame, I'm inserting my own emotions on you. You might not have experienced that, but the shame of shutting things down, the feeling of I would say questioning what you could have done differently. I mean, these are all normal parts of grief and letting down your community. I'm curious, plus X, Y, and Z of many other things that I'm sure have come into play. Did you have a specific moment where that started shifting for you, whether it's a moment or a time frame where you started feeling more confident in the next phase and really letting those lessons sink in as the positive lessons of life versus the I'm a failure, I'm a
Mm-hmm.
terrible business person, and I don't think I can do this again transition?
Mm-hmm. Great question. Yeah, for me, it was the hardest part was it actually for me, it wasn't shame of failure because I decided to take the approach. I was extremely vulnerable with my people. Like I shared with the staff, I shared with the customers openly. Like I said, I gave them a long runway so they could feel all the feels and really communicate and express. And what took me a long time to come back from is that I thought I was doing the right thing by being so open and vulnerable, and that really came back to bite me. And I experienced a lot of things that I had done for a lot of our staff, like staff that we had done so much for to support over the last 7, 8 years, um, like went out around town and told a different story. Like they put them into victim consciousness that I had done this to them and that I had failed rather than being honest about how things went. I blindsided them. I didn't tell them, I was just so that was the hardest part to come back from. I thankfully from the start, I had this other work that I had to pour myself into. And that was from the start really sustaining and really fulfilling, and it was changing people's lives. And so right away, I got to pivot into, okay, I was taking care of people and like helping people this way, but now I get to help them over this way. So that was really, really helpful and like holding steady through all of the upheaval. But it took me about 2 years. And I know my studio manager would say she's still recovering from the people part. Um, of us like doing our best to hold steadiness and grace through that difficult experience and not receiving that in return. That took the longest time. So the business piece was fine, but it took me a long time, 2 years before I felt ready to trust people in my business again. So, like for instance, I was like, I will never have employees again. I will never do it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to be responsible for people. I don't want to put myself in a position to ever feel like that again. But now I'm there. Like I got over that. But that was the hardest piece to come back from, I think, for me.
Thank you for sharing that. It's been 2 years for me. So it almost exactly 2 years. So I am in line with that similar timeline where I was going into work that was meaningful to me right away. And I kept teaching and I was able to still have work that is aligned with my forever goals of being a person that's helping people heal in the world through plants and through community. But I feel now I could imagine having another brick and mortar. I can imagine having an in person clinic. I can imagine having employees, people that rely on me. And thank you for sharing that, because what I would love to talk about now is something that I think a lot of people, a lot of especially solopreneurs and entrepreneurs and female entrepreneurs who feel this way, who are your people? And I ask this as in your friends and the types of people that you surround yourself with. I share from my own experience that when you become an entrepreneur and a boss, if you have employees, you become othered, and not in a victim point of view, but you are seen with power and authority, and people will put you in a different category. Often, that entrepreneur, that boss, that person doesn't put themselves in that category. So, how have you built your community around you to support you when you're running businesses, when you're looking at making a lot of money in this world of healing and connection? Who are those people that you hold most dear around you that really support you on your journey?
This is such a potent question because it's so layered. So, one of the things from the start, as soon as I had my very first employee, I chafed. If there was anything I chafed at in business, it was the employee structure of things that was required. This very masculine, patriarchal, especially like in California, it was parental. It infantilized people. Like suddenly you were responsible for like all this shit. I remember being in business the first 6 weeks and I was just getting inundated with paperwork. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm responsible for paying someone's child support from 7 years ago. Like, is this for real? Yeah, it's real. Um, so the whole system I chafed with. And so for to the exactly why you just said, like it pits you in this position of authority. And if you don't want to necessarily be in a top-down hierarchy, the system forces you to do that. So over 8 years, we were constantly trying to do different structures with our business, which I'm sure we drove our employment attorney insane with our novelty, with the things we were trying to do. But how I remedied that now is losing that. Now, in my new business, I was free to create the structure however I wanted. So, my business now, my community now has no hierarchy. None. None. It's I hold the space. I turn on the Zoom and I hold the Zoom primarily, but our communities, from our professional communities to our participant communities to our programs to our training, they feel like a circle. They feel like a circle. And if I am not there, there's someone else to step in my place. We don't have titles. We don't really have roles. Our roles are kind of interchangeable. And everybody is my people now are colleagues and peers and friends and equals. Like we don't have hierarchy. So it's a big difference. It's a potent question because it's when we're free to design our businesses as women, this is what we do.
I love that so much. And that's business models and structures are might be too early for a lot of the people that are listening in, but I think it's never too early to plan on how you want to work with people and what kind of structure you want based on how you want to expand and thinking about strategy of expansion and growth strategy. I wish I would have understood how important that was when I first started Scarlet Sage. I now work more in that place where I'm dedicated to working with colleagues. I'm dedicated to working with people. I don't have to manage their time. I'm work in cahoots with their own goals and their dreams for what they have in their life, and we happen to work in the same space. It is generally how it feels. And yet, I still am the one who's making the decisions on financials and growth because that's generally the direction that I like to take. But it is not an easy structure to use because it's atypical. And I think it's easy for people to get stuck in the power dynamics, as you said, parental, especially if you're a female, parental dynamics, sister dynamics, mother dynamics. If you have employees, it's just to be aware of you ever do start a business with employees, for anyone listening, that it will be put upon you whether you want it or not. So prepare for having that relationship be established, ideally early on, that you're not interested in that type of dynamic. Therefore, you don't feed that type of dynamic, such as taking care of someone's kid when they're sick, or as much as we want to be really connected to each other, that those relationships take time to build that kind of intimacy to make sure you still have that same working healthy working relationship that you can. And most people, again, don't ever actually experience that until they have to experience it.
That's why they're here.
That's why they're here.
They can learn before they do. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. One second, I'm just going to pull my son thing down. I'll edit that part out. Okay. I am very curious to get to the businessy side of things, because you're really good with technology. You've transitioned from this brick and mortar to this online virtual coaching business with a membership. I'm curious if you can share with us the cost you had to start it. So did you have any startup costs that you knew for sure this is what I needed to get this thing started? And then the second question would be, what is your monthly tech stack that you have? And if no one knows what a tech stack is, it's all of the online pieces that you need, or virtual technology that you need in order to run your community. I love sharing tech stacks because it's this unknown that everyone has. Like, what is the thing that you use to run your thing? And that's never one. People have to know there's multiple. So I'd be curious if you could share.
Yes, great question. It's, all your questions are like, oh, I wish I had this when I was first starting out, just because it saves you so much time. I mean, I think with all of the business advice and the technical advice you're given when you're going to a business person or a business coach, my experience was I had so much shit that I didn't need. Like, like especially if people coming from a corporate background, you actually don't need that much to get started. And so my advice to everybody now is talk to an entrepreneur who's doing what you want to do and actually ask them what you need, because a lot of the stuff that you need now, but then there's more stuff you won't need until you're 3 years in or 5 years in. I remember having a big payroll company when I had 4 people. I was like, why did we really need this? And so everything was made complicated when you're coming from, the business world or the MBA world or the corporate world. So just know, don't be intimidated because you actually need less than what you need. So my personal story, I'd love to share because this is so scary. So scary. And I think a lot of healers find themselves in this precipice right now that I'm going to describe, where you're coming from something else, you're ready to do something new, you're ready to like launch yourself into your new identity and life, but you need support in getting from here to there. So my situation was I had spent my whole life in person with people. I did in-person services and classes and sessions. I was extreme. I don't even think I had ever been on Zoom before, once in my life. And when we were when we were closed during the pandemic, my studio manager and I were doing Zoom meditation and yoga classes from our phones. This is how non-technical we were. We would park our phone on a chair or a yoga cork block and film ourselves. It was so bad. And I remember coming over one day after doing a class, and one of my massage therapists just looked at me and said, "You're not very good at this." It's like nice, accurate, but not very nice. So that's where I started. And then to do classes online, I was like, okay, I received the guidance, internal guidance to create a microdosing course online, but I was like, I have no idea how to do that. I have no idea how to do a course. I don't know how to use Zoom. I don't know how to any of this. I need help. And so I did my research and homework to find the best coach I could online and the best program to create an online course program. And I found one that seemed wonderful. I met the woman, she seemed wonderful. The price of the program was $11,000. And I was like, God. At the time, this is when my studios were burning through, no joke, we were burning through about 14K a month. just hemorrhaging money with fixed expenses with no revenue coming in. It was people, can I use my gift card? It's like, right. Can I use my gift cards? And so it was a big ask. Like it was a big leap of faith to put $11,000 on my credit card in that moment. But I was like, to do this, I have no idea what I'm doing. And I can like try to do it myself and DIY it and make it really half-assed, or I can go to the person I think is the best to get me there the fastest and to invest in myself, invest in my coach, and light a fire under myself to do this. And I made the investment. 6 months later, I launched our pilot program. I followed that program to the T. I went to every call. I listened to every piece of advice she shared, step by step, and launched it. And I, within a year, 10x'd my investment in it, came back. So that's the biggest takeaway. Like, I find so many healers and so many women so terrified to make that initial investment, whether it's 2K or 4K or 10K, but don't look at it that way. Look at it like, what is going to come back to you? Because over time, it's 10, 20, 100x that's going to come back.
I want to clarify a question. Thank you so much for sharing that because I've definitely spent a lot of money on trainings. I'm currently in this content strategy training right now, which was thousands of dollars. But for people that truly don't have the money and don't have the credit and don't have the ability to do that or even take that risk, I'm curious if you could speak about timing on that specific jump. So I'm assuming that you already knew what you wanted to do. You already had deep clarity, spiritual clarity about what you wanted to do next. So could you give some advice for, I have my own version of advice there of when someone knows that that risk is worth taking, that money is worth investing if they want to put 5K, 10K into something. Because I think jumping into something as that is the solution to figuring out what you want to do is the wrong advice for someone that doesn't actually have that deep clarity. I know
Mm.
you well enough knowing that there was already a very clear picture that you had as an outcome.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a big, I see, I've just literally had this conversation this morning with one of the guides in my program who we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to think that we need to do one thing and only one thing fully. And so a lot of healers are like, oh, well, I'm still working in my corporate job, but I need to jump off and just be a healer and just do this. And we have these notions of identity that are highly compartmentalized. Whereas I think in the future, we are multifaceted and we are give ourselves permission to do multiple things. And so for those people who still have another job and they're not quite sure how their herbalism career is going to take shape, rather than pressuring yourself that you need to have X outcome by X time, just try, I'm like, treat your existing job or role, whatever you in, as your first investor. It's better than an investor. It actually pays you, it gives you some stability. One of the guides that I'm very, very close with today, I've been working with her coming up on 6 years now. And she's had a corporate job when I first met her. And for the first couple years, she had this date out in the future. I look forward to this date when I can let go of my corporate job. And 6 years later, she still happily has that job because, and it's wonderful. She has seamlessly built her healing practice adjacent to her corporate job. It has allowed her the spaciousness to build. She never feels pressured to get more clients or hustle harder. She can work the way she wants to work and build her groups and practices around her other work life. So I think, um, again, I think soundboarding with someone who has experience, like to really help you understand it doesn't need to look a certain way, right? Um, And I also wanted to just, you asked about tech stack, tech stack too. For people that are starting out, I would, similar to tech stuff too, just business stuff in general. A lot of the stuff you think you need to do and business people will tell you need to do at the outset, you don't need to decide right away. Because sometimes when you're new, you don't actually know who your client's going to be and who the shape your business is actually going to take. Especially as a healer or a guide, we can go in so many different directions. It's art, right? It's just like art. We can do so many different things. Like you might be doing retreats, you might be doing destination things, you might have an in-person clinic, you might be doing online work. And until you start, you might surprise yourself, oh, I thought it was going to look like this, but I actually love online work, like way more than I thought I would. Or I wind up doing retreats, and that's a primary driver in my business. And so before you make big investments, into the way you think it's going to be, I encourage people to kind of keep things lean, let things play out, follow your own heart, what you really love about the business, what your clients are most excited about and naturally gravitating to, and then make the big investments like, am I going to be an S Corp or an LLC? Do I need to get a payroll company? How many people do I really need to hire? Tech stack wise, again, I keep it really, really simple. I think the only thing I tell healers and guides to get like yesterday is get your email list going as soon as possible. I have used Kit for many years now. It used to be called ConvertKit. Before that, because I'm old, I used Constant Contact and then MailChimp, and I've kind of been on every iteration, but I've used Kit. For the length of my microdosing platform, and I love them. And it's one that I feel good about consistently recommending to people. It's free, like as to get started. You don't have to invest anything until you get up to a certain subscriber amount. But I think that's the most important piece of your tech starting out in any facet of healing is to start building your list.
I love that so much. And I will get back to what you were talking about before, specifically about that non-linear path, which we opened with. But the tech stack, you're right, email lists are everything. Even if there's 20 people on the email list, getting people converting off of a website, off of a social media, out of an event that you're doing onto an email list so you can speak to them directly is gold. And I know everyone has said email lists are gold, but it's true. They are absolute gold. It's really important for people to understand that getting them to hang out with you personally one-on-one is an email list. They want to be there. They can unsubscribe if they don't want to be with you. It's a really great way to communicate to them directly. I love that. I've actually transitioned from a MailChimp currently to Squarespace. So I moved my entire Landiverse website from Shopify because we got too expensive. We weren't actually selling physical product anymore, which Shopify is the best e-commerce website for that. So I wasn't needing it any longer. And Squarespace has gotten so good. We transitioned this last month. Actually, it took 3 months to transition onto Squarespace. And I'm just using their email list now because it's only $20 a month for about 14,000 people on our list. And it's saving me over $130 a month. So for me, that has actually been an important transition, but not an easy one. Changing your platforms is not a quick decision nor an easy decision, but it is interesting watching certain platforms and certain technology advance and therefore become a better deal at some point, as long as it has all the bells and whistles that you want it to. But I've heard really good things about Kit, and some people have transitioned off of Substack specifically to be more direct on Kit and not have the advertising on Substack that they have now. So there's everything works in a different place for everyone. But I agree with you that there isn't a huge amount that people need to invest in right now. The lean startup model is a huge piece of what I teach and how I actually build my companies as cheap as possible. As like $25, that's a good amount to invest in your. I actually use Canva a lot as one of my tech stacks, and then Google Workspace because you can have your URL be your email. And so those are the two kind of non-essential, non-negotiables that I have is Google Workspace which is cheap, $20 a month at the most, I think, for just one email, and then, or even 12, I think, dollars a month for one email. And then you can have multiple emails in there. So thank you for sharing about Kit. I'm really glad to hear that that's something that you're non-negotiable working with you. And we're
Hmm.
not getting sponsored by any of these companies.
True, true. I think if I was advising a new healer and they were just very simple, like starting a practice from scratch, I would recommend they start with Squarespace email
Great.
because it's uncomplicated, it's easy, it's much more affordable. You know, Kit's free at first, but then when you move up, like I think mine now I pay annually and it's about $1,300 a year for a whole year of service. The reason why I love Kit now is because I'm very non-technical and still they make it very easy to create subset email. So for example, if you have multiple things going on in your business, like different trainings and different programs and multiple different communities, I have separate emails lists within the master list of
Yeah,
email.
so
And
thankfully
that's
Squarespace has started doing that now. They've been doing subgroups within the large audience. So you can actually do that with all of them. But I agree, if you're
right.
in a large company growing a lot and you need a CRM, a customer relationship management tool, something like Kit works really well for that and tracking all of your leads. So definitely good for that growth model for people that are really looking at high value, high customer relationship management and email list. Great. I would love to speak upon that note that you said that we're not one thing. I am the type of person, the poly entrepreneur, that needs at least three things going on in my life at the same time in order for me to feel happy, truly, and feel content. And I know most entrepreneurs are those types of people because if you're like my wife that wants the corporate job and the salary and the paycheck and to feel secure in your life and want that 9 to 5 for the next 50 years, then entrepreneurship actually might not fulfill you. But if you're someone that wants a different day every day or wants this days to be structured here, these days to be structured here, I think entrepreneurship is a really great avenue for folks that want a lot of different things going on. And as you were speaking about the side hustle, I think the side hustle is actually undervalued. I've seen people become millionaires from a side hustle because they have the time and the space and the energy to be creative with it, to test it cheaply, to try something new, put $100 in here and see what happens. If it fails, they still have their job, but they still have their main source of revenue or income. So I think that exploration of trying something out for a while and seeing how it goes is an essential piece of success as an entrepreneur. And then there's that fine balance. And I would love to hear your advice and your wisdom about this, the fine balance of how long do I give it? How far do I go? How hard do I push to know if it's successful? And when do I know when to stop that it's not just the clarity of it's not working? I think normally we know internally it's not working, but what is that kind of indication for you when you think, how long am I going to test this and when do I transition out of it or pivot?
Hmm. Great question. I think if I looked across all the healers, like the solo healer entrepreneurs that I have ever witnessed, most of the time they didn't soon enough put profit first. You have to get over our stigma and conditioning around profit is what enables freedom and independence and proof of concept, right? And the sooner you get to profit, then you know you have a sustainable thing going on. And so a lot of people sometimes they don't put profit first because they have a job to rely on or they have a spouse income to rely on, and so they can let things go without being profitable for way too long because they're leveraging something else. And until we look at that blind spot often, we don't really know if our business is working or not because it's just a hobby. Actually, until you're profitable, it's like a hobby. And that's fine too. There's nothing wrong with just having your passion and doing healing work as a hobby in addition to something else. But I think if you're an entrepreneur and you want to make your business sustainable and energetically in balance ongoing, um, as soon as possible, put profit first and let that be the measure how long you continue.
Perfect segue into talking about money. I know you're a deeply spiritual person, and I would love for you to share. I'm excited for you to share more about the way you bring your spirituality into business decisions. But before that, I would love to jump into how you really understand money and work with money in what some people say late stage capitalism. I don't know what stage we're in truly. I would be it would I would have too much hubris if I actually understood what stage of capitalism we're in. But we're in deep capitalism, which is extraction and exploitation. How do you work with money, view money, understand the language around money in your own way that makes you a successful entrepreneur, that gives you the freedom that you need in your life to maintain your livelihood and succeed in your business?
Thank you for that opportunity. I think my initial piece of advice is, especially for healers and especially for women, is to almost put blinders on to a lot of the conventional business advice that you see because we focus on the completely wrong things, right? We don't focus, if you kind of listen to the mainstream narratives on business, it's all about scaling. It's all about how much money someone raised. It's all about who they surround themselves with. And so it doesn't mean they're running a meaningful, profitable business at all. And so the less you pressure yourself and kind of get caught up in doing that, because it doesn't matter. Does it matter? Um, and it's much simpler than that. So that I think if you start out with like not pressuring yourself to be that, that's really helpful. If you live doing that in the Bay Area, it's really hard because you're surrounded by that. Um, Technology, entrepreneurship culture, which is very different than building a healing business built to last. That's a legacy business that you're going to be building over time. So that's one thing. And so, what is the alternative if you're not going to follow that playbook? That's where I think it gives you license to have the freedom to build your life more in this feminine, nonlinear, circular structure where you focus on the foundations first, truly. And it's not glamorous because you're not talking about scaling, right? Or serving millions of people at the outset. It's really focusing on those first 6 clients, those first 12 clients, and then that becomes dozens of clients. And that's in every business I've ever done. It's those first few clients seeded all to come after them. Like the beginnings are so important. And so as you're focusing, I can still feel like in my studios 8 years later, I could still feel the presence of the threads of the initial 4 therapists that started there. In my microdosing community, I still have my original people are still present in the community who were in my first groups 5 years ago. So that's what I encourage you to focus on that. Like focus on your foundations, focus on your relationships, focus on building collaborative networks. I think in the not too distant future, we don't have necessarily social media to promote our businesses. We are in we're in very unpredictable times, and so bringing your business more local, bringing your business more relational, more collaborative, more cross-pollinating with other communities, and knowing people. I think our businesses are going to become much more intimate and much more local and much more like we used to do things. versus selling to strangers the way we have been doing for the past 5 years.
How would you infuse your view on money in all of that? Because I know a lot of barriers that people have, especially if they weren't raised with money or felt like they didn't learn about money as a child, didn't have that privilege of understanding how to invest as a young person. How would you, I think just personally, how do you view money as a seed to plant in people's minds now?
I view money as creative resources. It's like paint is to an artist. And the more you have, the more you can create, is the way I view money. So when you put profit first in your business, like you have to price things and assign value to things so that they're profitable, so that you can be sustained, all of your tech stack can be sustained, right? And so once you have that in place, then with your profit, you can, to me, that's what scaling is kind of having the resources so that the living, breathing being that your business becomes has the resources to grow and expand in the direction it wanted to. So, for example, like if I had built my studios and listened to MBAs, we would have done Botox, we would have done waxing, we would have sold a lot of skin stuff and cosmetics, right? Everything would have been based on money. Everything would have been based on how do we make the most money we can. Instead of that, because we built for profit first and had money and resourcing internally, we could do things our own way. And so when we grew, we were selling elderberry and fire cider instead of skin stuff. Like we were doing qigong and sound healing instead of waxing and Botox. So that's the freedom. If anything, I encourage people not to be intimidated by making money, being profitable, because it just gives you freedom and independence and control. And when more money is in the hands of healers, that's the future. That's the future we need, preferably as soon as possible.
Thank you. The best advice I was ever given was by a traditional businessman. He said, money's options. And if you look at that and you just see it as that, as this neutral entity, and I'm grateful that you brought it into a more creative point of view, which is the paint. It's your materials that you use to create these beautiful things. And I believe in the same thing you believe, which is more healers and more people connected to the earth and to spirit that have more resources, money included, the better all of us are in this world, because people that care and have empathy and deep sensitivity about the world should be the ones making those decisions. And generally, those people with power are the people with the most money, sadly.
Yeah. Yeah. Money
Yeah,
is just, I mean, I work in the psychedelic field, and the word that's used commonly in the psychedelic field is psychedelics are a non-specific amplifier. Money is a non-specific
I
amplifier.
love that.
So
Right.
it just makes you more of what you already are. And so people who are very service oriented and other oriented, collective oriented, given more money, given more power, they're just going to put more
Mm,
energy into that.
thank you. I love that. I'm going to use that non-specific amplifier. That's so perfect for what money actually is. It's a really intense psychedelic. And therefore, the more you take, it will amplify those blind spots and those big greed, your view on beauty, all of those things, because you will have more of those options to dispose in those spaces that you are really deep within you. And those are those subcurrents that are running your life and making those decisions. And I think that's a really beautiful and very poignant way to look at money. I'm curious if you can share before we open it up to some questions. I'm curious if you can share about how you view spirit and how spirit works with you, or how you work with spirit in your business life. And I would love to hear more about your psychedelic work as well. But knowing you, I would love for you to share as much as you feel comfortable with.
I do. I do. Yeah, Laura knows me. It's kind of one and the same at this point. So I think, I was funny. I was driving today thinking about the best business advice I've ever received. And when I look back over 30 years, every single piece of advice, the best advice, came from within me or was channeled through me by spirit in every single case. And that, with working in the field for so long and then layering in my work with mushrooms, it's just amplified that ability to the point where it's just one and the same. And I feel so directed by that, from how I create programs, when the programs run, what is the next thing I'm going to do. It's really comes from divine guidance or just from within me, a knowingness. It's very much not a mental strategy at this point. Strategy and support, those things come in like shaping the idea, shaping the vision. But in terms of the idea itself, it's completely sourced from within. So how do you get there? I have a lot of people that I got are like, okay, that's nice, but how do I how do I develop that when I feel pretty apart from my intuition at this point? It's a practice, just like everything else. And I think over coming into this year and this different, very different energy, we're going to start to remember we all have access to that. It's something we used to be able to do. We're going to be able to do it again. And so a lot of people are going to be having gifts come through, dreams, connections to spirit, connections to their guides and angels, their connection to their instinct and their intuition, and then drawn to practice more around those things to cultivate that connection, how to orient your life in such a way that that is central and that's kind of your leading guide. I think right now in this moment, the people that I know that are thriving, the healers that I know that are thriving in their life and their businesses, are those that are internally resourced. So they have cultivated this connection within themselves, that they're not as impacted by what's going on externally or advice from the external. And it's night and day, the difference in what it gives them in their business.
Thank you so much for saying that. I am, as you are, I'm sure, blessed with many teachers that have guided me in the direction, as you said, the best advice has been internal, guided me in the direction of getting that best advice. I would say the where I've made mistakes in business is by taking other people's advice, that I put them on a pedestal above me, that they clearly knew more than me in business and they clearly knew my business better than I did, versus the advice I got from people who were asking me, what do you think about it? Where do you want to go with this? And helped me, guide me through my own path of being honest with what I felt was the correct answer, honest, instead of telling me what I needed to do. And I think I'm constantly learning that, being raised in a very Christian society and a Mormon household. I was told that I didn't have the authority to make decisions in my life. And many people are told, go to this person, they'll tell you what to do. Go to this person, they'll tell you what to do. You do not actually, you have to ask for permission to know what to do. And I'm still unraveling that and still having confidence that I actually do have the answer, even if it's not there now, that I will figure it out. And that the people in my life that are coming through me will help me figure it out, not just tell me what to do or give me the answer when I don't know. But it is an easy trap to be in, even in the spiritual world, of going to the tarot reader and asking them to tell you about your life versus getting the answers within. it's a really tough path to be on, is you do have the answers. And sometimes that answer is no, and sometimes that answer is I don't know. Sometimes that answer is not yet. And we want the concrete. Just someone tell me what to do, please. To run my life for me, please. It's so much easier.
Yes. Yes. I think one of the frictions I'm seeing quite a bit now across the board in clients and in relationships with colleagues and guides reflecting to me is friction between women healers often or female leaders and healers with their clients around this edge that you just spoke to because when it happens, it's very destabilizing to women. And what I often see is a woman doesn't completely trust the advice or mentorship from another woman, but she will put a male who is much less experienced in a position of authority very easily. And whenever this happens with colleagues, they're like, why? 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 And it's really not about she doesn't trust you, is she doesn't trust herself yet, is actually what's happening. And as she trusts herself more, she sees herself in you. And that's what's actually going on. And that's the solution of that is for that person to become more empowered in her own value and her own authority and her own power, and that's how we shift things. So I think like all this friction around that I see right now is just this time is really summoning women to step into our leadership because that is going to what is necessary to lead us out of this strange time we're in.
Thank you for that. There's so much internalized misogyny that I'm always trying to check with myself and with my daughter and my wife, many women in my life, in my home, let alone all my friends and my sisters, my mother, etc. There's so many examples that I see in imposter syndrome, specifically with women. I think 90% of women have imposter syndrome. It's so easy to think that we don't have enough. We are not enough. And going back to that original point of you saying that I am so grateful I went on this nonlinear path to not have to do all this deconditioning. I'm still personally dealing with that imposter syndrome of not having the PhD that tells the world that I'm valuable, right? And yet I look at my life, the last 20 years of being an herbalist, and the last 25 years, like you started at 19, of going into healing work and being interested in this work, that was the best internship and education I could have ever had, was diving deep into the work, learning from teachers, learning from books, being on the road, so to speak, in the learning and the lessons. But that confidence with how the culture, the overculture, as Dr. Clarissa Pinkola Estes likes to call it, what telling us what our value is versus us knowing our value is a constant battle, a constant spiritual battle, emotional battle, psychic battle for value. And you are speaking with a lot of self-confidence of starting something, being comfortable being out in the world. What advice would you give someone to, other than that daily practice of what you said in spirit, speaking internally, what advice would you give for people, or what's the best thing that you think for building that self-confidence, especially for folks that were not raised by encouraging parents or having a community around them encouraging them to go do the world a favor by being whatever they want?
Beautifully said. The number one thing to me by far is to surround yourself with other healers, other women who hold that empowerment and have more than enough to share with you.
I love that so much. I've going back to a question that I asked you about how do you manage, who do you have around in your life? I found the best people in my life are other female entrepreneurs that are either pet parents or human parents, because they're caregiving which is a huge part of our lives, plus to their, immediate family members and to the community, and also needing to care for themselves and also needing to be financially stable and grow their finances to be able to support their families and the people they care for. So those are the people that it takes time to build those friends and family, but online is a great way to start it, and then building it within your own community. It's almost everything because people can speak your language. People can ask you, what's your revenue goals? Or have you, been able to meet, what kind of pivots are you doing right now in your business, and not have it be an uncomfortable conversation. I like asking people, how much money did you make last year? What was your revenue? And then not even say, oh yeah, I made 2 million last year, and be like, oh, okay, what was your goal for next year? These numbers are not, trust me, they're not putting 2 million in their pockets. But the revenue amount is something we should all be comfortable speaking about with one another to make it normal and easy. And I see men doing this all the time. They ask these questions to each other all the time. I see my son doing it with his friends, and he's 15 years old. Like, oh, did you get that thing on sale about games or about toys? Or, and I'm encouraging my daughter who's 12 to have similar, not directly the same, but similar conversations about saving money or looking at money in a way that's resource and goal oriented. So I would have to agree with you that surrounding yourself with people that are doing similar work and having similar goals is vital to feeling like you're connected to your source and connected to other people's source as well. And to reduce jealousy and to reduce the othering that a lot of people feel when they're doing their own thing, which can happen.
100%. 100%. Yeah, all of those things. And we have a group of guides who do what I do. Like we're all essentially competitors with each other, but we're all in community together and in solidarity together. And we come together twice a month, every month. And it's exactly that because we're all rooting each other on. Sometimes we'll have like a really difficult client or we'll get attacked online by some old guy. It happens to everybody. And it's so nice to be able to have a group of peers who get you. We've all been there and who can kind of pull you up and out of it and walk you through it and kind of get you back on track so you're not derailed from it. You can see how all of the things and setbacks happen right before you're about to expand and grow. Always. And it's really when you're on your own and solo, you don't know that yet because you haven't been through that enough. When you're surrounded by kind of seasoned, experienced people who've been through that before, they can hold you up and keep going rather than make yourself small and retreat in the face of being attacked or being fearful. Knowing that this is exactly the medicine you were getting and preparing you for a greater expansion. And then the last piece is like, I'm super competitive innately. Like I loved competing. I was an athlete as a kid. Um, and I love competition. And it's one year as I came across that competition, the root of the word competition is actually to go together. And I love that because ideally, competition at its heart and its essence is when you compete with people, it's you're pushing each other farther along faster. And I see that now in our group. Like every time we get together, someone will share their new program, their new branding, their new launch, their new design, their new logo. And it ignites everybody else's courage and creativity. So it's not that they're jealous or copying or kind of motivated by their success, they're inspired by their success, they're inspired by their courage. And so when one person is courageous and earning more, that gives everybody else self permission to want the same thing and own the same thing as them. So I love it.
I love that so much. I am so grateful you brought up competition because I believe there's not enough herbalists in the world. There's not enough healers in the world. And the more of us, the more we all thrive. So competition as an is a positive thing, just like a typical business person would say, if there's no competitors, there's no market for it, right? If people are not doing what you're doing, nobody's buying it. Therefore, it doesn't exist. So actually, competition is a healthy avenue to see that there's a viable resource here and people are interested and they want it and they're buying, spending money on these things. So I agree with you completely that the competition comes from an old way. You talk about this paradigm shift, an old way of thinking that there's not enough. There's enough. There's plenty because Mother Earth is resourced for enough. We're ruining it, we're damaging it. And part of that damaging is thinking there's not enough with each other as well. So I love that. And I think that's a great way to just get out of this scarcity of if this person exists, I can't exist versus because this person exists, it shows that I actually can exist. And more acupuncturists mean more acupuncturists, right? Because people, it's normal. More herbalists means more herbalists, more microdosing coaches mean more microdosing coaches. Can you share, before we open it up to members, can you share about microdosing for healing and your community and what you are doing right now? Because I know you're launching a new group, a new cohort, and I would love just to hear how that works, what people can do to learn more about you, and what would it look like to become a microdosing coach if that's the cohort you're about to launch.
Yeah, I'd love to. And if it's okay, I'd love to kind of take people back to the beginning for those to
Great.
learn about how, because a lot of times I meet people and they're like, how the hell are you doing all of these things, like all of these things at the same time? You must work all the time. And I actually don't. So I'd actually like to take you back and when you build your business more circular style versus top down, I started with the groups. And so when you're starting to build your business, I called them 6 week group immersions. And I did two and then four and then six and then over years. And so I just built those. And then from that, people finished the program, the 6 weeks, and they wanted to continue. And so I made our community kind of sprang out of that very naturally. So we just added calls just for people who graduated those groups. And then over time, that became its own thing. And then the field opened up in 2023, and suddenly lots of people were given a microphone, but none of them healers and none of them guides. It was academics and scientists, and it was a lot of men. And I was like, oh, don't people want to learn from the people doing this work? And so that's when I started my podcast in 2023 as a platform to give voices to the people that have been doing this work, sometimes for years underground. And my programs and my community funded the podcast that grew into that. Then over time, we noticed a lot of people were graduating in our 6 week immersion and wanting to go become a microdosing guide and support other people. They were just doing it. It was just very organic and it happened naturally. So after 4 years of witnessing people and having X thousands of people through the program, then it became time to build a facilitator training program that was a more structured guideship. Is I have walked this path in my personal life. Now I want to create a professional pathway. And so the facilitator training certification came out of that. So I wanted to share it in that order because sometimes people look at businesses from the outside and they think they need to do everything all at once all the time. And it's really intimidating. Um, or you kind of lose yourself and pressuring yourself to trying to do four different things from the start when really it just starts with one client. Start with one client and then it becomes a dozen, it becomes 100, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what we do today. And then I love working with beginners. So we're very, very accessible. Our community is just gives people the opportunity to come in. We serve 30 countries around the world to come in and just learn about microdosing practice, which is taking small subthreshold amounts of a psychedelic, usually mushrooms in my case, but also some other plant and earth medicines, for healing, for therapy, for mental health, physical health, spiritual connection, personal development. It's really a great range now that people come for and to. Um, yeah, that's us. And we're at Microdosing for Healing.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. I think that was beautiful to hear your growth path and your growth. Probably, I'm curious if you even knew that was the strategy when you started growing microdosing for healing, because it became that personal practice first, that people were doing it for themselves, and then it grew into this facilitator program. Yeah, you didn't have that planned out. It just happened.
No, and I resisted, especially the facilitator training. I resisted, and a lot of my guide colleagues too, that we talk about this quite a lot, is we resisted putting a certification and putting a quote unquote structure over it with a thing at the end, because it's again, it's really hard to put this work into kind of our muggle world structures of hierarchy and certifications and things like that. But what we really came to, it was funny, a lot of us got called last year to do it. Um, Probably no coincidence with what has transpired over the last year, is we felt really called to step into the space and really take up space in the space that women have been tending for millennia. And we realized if we didn't step into the space and take up space and create trainings and structures in the space, it was going to be taken over by corporate and bankers and pharma and men, just like things have a tendency to do. And so in a way, it's kind of like our form of resistance is to take up space in this way.
I love that so much. Take up space. It's not an easy thing to do as women, even though we've come so far. We still have so far to go, especially during these times. So I love that reminder and that ability to surround yourself with people that are having those conversations. So you're all doing it collectively. That's beautiful. Do you want to share any other wisdom nuggets that you have before we open it up for questions?
Hmm. I think to lean into a lot of healers and herbalists and people who come to this work, and I'm sure come to both of our communities and are magnetized by our communities, tend to have a really, really strong intuition and instinct and connection with the earth. And lean into that. Lean into that. It's such a powerful source and thing to draw on to direct your life and your business. I listen to nature far more than any human at this point for guidance and wisdom and direction for my business. Oftentimes I'll have a question or I'll be stumped on something with the business or I have a decision, and I'll go outside and I'll see an animal doing something that answers my question for me. So I think all the things that like make you different and make you weird are actually your superpower. It's your special inner guidance. So I think we don't own that enough and lean into that enough. We kind of pressure ourselves to think we need what to look like a business person looks, when actually if we source ourselves from our innate gifts, we're actually much more of a powerful business person than we might know.
Thank you for that so much. I am so honored to speak with you today and so grateful. I can't wait to have you back and to share more with our community and have more one-on-one time with you as well. So thank you so much, Kayse. It's microdosingforhealing.com. Is that correct? Okay,
Mhm.
great. You can find Kayse there. And I'm curious if there's any questions. I know Ami is here. Monique, if you guys have any questions, you can put it in the chat or unmute. Hi, Ami. Anybody have any
Yeah, I
questions?
have a question.
Please.
I mean, I know a little bit, I'm just going back to kind of newbie beginner stuff, but like with the email list, like what are some of your best ways to build that, and or was there anything you did that definitely didn't work, or anything that you did that worked better than you thought it would and surprised you?
Great question. I think consistency is key. And that's one of the things I see a lot of healers struggle with. They'll be like, I'm really into this. I'm going to email people a lot. And then they disappear for months at a time. And so I think sometimes we pressure ourselves to do certain things in our business that aren't sustainable. Right. And so I think over time, like not having that pressure to post 3 times a day or email right regularly. I think even doing like a seasonal email to your client, to your email list is perfect. And that's like sending a thoughtful, well-crafted email once a season is far more powerful than like sending people 3 emails in a row and then being dormant for a year, which is what a lot of people do. So I think from the outset, just setting up some structures and some consistency in when you're going to email people and reach out to people is a key.
I'm curious, Kayse, if you've done any giveaways like downloadables or PDFs that people insert their emails and how that has worked for you.
All the things. I've done all the things. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think one of the things I share with guides often is whatever your lead magnet is. And if you guys don't know what a lead magnet is, it's kind of your initial offer. It's kind of your icebreaker with clients. And typically it's a lead magnet because it's something they give you their email address to access. So it could be a quiz, it could be a PDF, it could be a video workshop. And I got my first initial coach gave me a very hard time with my lead magnet. She really did not like my lead magnet because it was too long. So my lead magnet for the longest time, it was an 80-minute microdosing 101 workshop. And it was me in a community being interviewed with a bunch of people asking their beginner questions. And it was 80 minutes long. And she didn't want me to do that. And it was the best lead magnet ever, 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 because it was very me. Like people who work with me know, like my containers are slow, they're deep, they're long. I'm going to be with you for a long time. Like a lot of my clients, we're going to be weaving in and out for the rest of our lives together. So having an in-depth, lengthy, deep, rich lead magnet gave people a really good feel for what it would be like to work with me. So that's the key for your lead magnet is craft a lead magnet that gives people not only valuable information, but also it gives people and is aligned with who you are. And that's going to be so unique for each of you. So if you are a video person, and you're very interactive with your people, like the best medium for your lead magnet is going to be a video where people get to see you and feel you and see you talking. If you're a very natural teacher, like I have some clients and guides I work with that are just born teachers. You just see them and they're in their mastery when they're teaching. So their lead magnet is not going to be a PDF, right? It's going to be a visual where they are teaching doing their thing and people can see them from that lens. So that's my best advice, whatever your lead magnet might be, is that it be aligned with who you are.
Thank you for sharing that, Kayse. I 100% agree that you have to be so deeply honest with yourself and go against the grain to be able to know what to actually do. It's sometimes counterintuitive because it's not typical business advice to put an 80-minute lead magnet on there, but you're right. If that's what gets the right people in, it's not all the people, it's the right people that show up that want to hang out with you on your email list, that want your information. I've lost actually a number of people recently on my email newsletter list. And I was like, this is probably a good thing because I'm transitioning also from this online only school with Land of Verse, not with Holistic Business Folk. I'm doing a different model with Holistic Business Folk. I'm focusing on Substack. But with my email newsletter list, I lost 100 people. And I was like, right, because I'm transitioning to clinical work. transitioning to more in person, actually, that's a good cleanup for me. I'm looking at as I'm keeping the right people, higher engagement, more committed people that want the in person experiences, want the retreats, want the clinical space. So having that confidence to do the thing that is so resonant with you is the hard part of that lead magnet generation that you were just talking about. Do you have more questions about email lists and conversions, lead magnets?
I actually do. I find, okay, so I do have some experience with this with my real estate business, and with things that worked really well, but actually didn't generate leads, but they worked really well. Like I got tons of subscribers, but they didn't convert. But right now I'm in a funny place with the coaching business in that like the website's not fully built out, the content isn't fully there. And I'm like finding myself just hesitating to send those emails or build like if people come to my site, there's a little bit there, but it's not fully ready to launch. And so I don't know. I guess I'm hesitating, but also I'm just wondering like what advice you would give for number one, just getting started. But also like, do you have comments on that? Like, should I just get over that and just start sending stuff out? Or like, I don't want people to get an email from me, go to my site and be like, oh yeah, this isn't really anything yet, and just be like, then I lose them, like, is the effort worth it? And then also, like in the past, I used ads on social media to get those emails, and I'm wondering if that's still a viable way to do that.
Mhm. What do you do, Ami? Can you describe your practice, your
I'm
coaching
I'm an
practice?
herbalist and a coach, and I'm working on building online offerings. And like discussed, I have many little pots I'm stirring, and so I'm sort of like plugging away. But I think I definitely need to get more methodical about what I do when. But in the meantime, like I'm still like I have a meeting tomorrow to form the LLC, and I'm still getting all the disclaimer stuff on the website and the contracts written so that just that's ready to go. So if someone does call and be like, I'm ready for one-on-one coaching, I'm like, here's the contract instead of me having to scramble. So I'm really close though, but in the meantime, I do know the value of a good email list, and I do want to launch a program later this year. And so I know I need that, but I just feel myself hesitating to do it.
Hmm. Yeah,
And it's interesting you brought up the seasonal thing because that worked really well in the real estate, and that's the model I was planning on going with, is just a seasonal email to start.
fantastic. I think time is moving so much faster and faster and faster that we actually like a little goes a long way. So I think the pressure to do more and post so much and email so much, we're actually going to go in the other direction and slow things down, and less is more right now. So I think seasonal emails is wonderful. Um, a couple thoughts. Like if I was just starting out-ish in a new career, I feel like people are so overwhelmed and overstimulated right now. Even I noticed when people would apply to work with me through my website, if I emailed them back, it would get lost. Even that time it took between applying and then emailing and getting the email back. And I had much, much better luck when they applied. I would text them back. I would text them back and say, I got your application. Would you like to set up our call? And we would do it by text. And it worked. It was so much better than email. Now, a lot of people will go, oh, you give people your cell phone. It's never been a problem. Like we make things into a problem. Like clients texting you is not a problem. You want clients to contact you. And I think allowing people to text you and working with text, it eliminates the people missing emails, your emails going into spam filters and things. And it's just, again, people are so overwhelmed with the chaos of the overculture right now that it just helps thing. That also for you, it alleviates your reticence to show them a website. You know what I mean? Like if you are sending out an email and say, for the month of February, I'm doing a special rate for consultations or discovery call, however you want to frame it. And if you would like to receive one, text me this word. and this number. Easy, straightforward. And you start to get that um, building and going. That's kind of how I would go about it now.
I love the intimacy of that too, Casey, where you're bringing in, I want you to feel comfortable with me. I'm only bringing in so many people, so I'm going to know who you are. We're going to build that relationship because you're small right now. And that's a perfect way to say, I'm only welcoming 3 new clients for my initial launch. Here's my phone number. If you exploit it, I'm going to block you, obviously, because that's just going to happen. But it
Yeah,
won't, they won't, right? The
they
people that
won't.
want you are going to feel comfortable with you as the individual. And that's a perfect stage to be at the beginning, which is giving your phone number out. And if you only have 20 people, 100 people on your email list, that's okay to put your phone number out there. I love that suggestion. I really do. And giving away from the app and from the things that are additional tech is something that is really helpful for people that also don't want to spend the time to and don't have the time to kind of build their knowledge of your world, which I'm finding is more difficult than desired when you have a whole world that you have to show up for people. But I
Mhm.
really love that advice a lot with the text. Thanks for sharing that.
Mhm. Yeah, one of the hardest pills to swallow along the business adventure was realizing that our clients and our customers don't even ever go to our websites. I remember having my studio and taking great care. We were constantly updating the site, constantly updating new offerings and new events and new seasonal things and new things. And somewhere along the way, our clients and our customers, we were like, didn't you see it on the website? And they were like, oh, I haven't been to your website since I got the directions to come here 8 years ago. I was like, oh, the only person looking at the website is me.
Yeah.
So that was disturbing and freeing at the same time. So a lot of people, I see this with guides all the time, is they hesitate to quote unquote launch their business until their website is perfectly complete. And the fact is, your website, people want to get a sense of who you are and know how to contact you. And they never go to it again. Ever. So if you can like circumvent that at the beginning until you're comfy with your website and just have them text you directly, that's perfect.
I've seen really beautiful one-page websites that it's a little bio, how to contact you, and here's my socials, or here's my YouTube channel, or here's my email list that are very, very, very simple. And you're absolutely right. There's a huge growth opportunity right now in startup culture where it's all just landing pages. And there's even AI generated landing pages for whoever's seeing it. There's A/B testing, there's all of this building out your website, but the majority of people don't even have, like you said, very massive websites anymore because the majority of the business they do is outside of their website. They're doing offers or social or community events, etc. So I agree with you that you don't, it might be the thing that you meditate about of is why am I holding back? It's if it's not the website, what is it? What is the thing holding me back? Because the website's an easy place to say I'm stuck and therefore I can't launch. What is the thing? What is the imposter syndrome? What is the hesitation? And I think a lot of it can come from, and I'd be curious, Casey, what you think about this. A lot of it can come from but they did it this way. This is, the comparison. That's how a business is supposed to be done versus what can I do? And I like that solution of the text for that particular issue. Ami, any more questions?
Well, we could just go around and around and around. I'm the endless questions lady for sure. But that was very helpful. I think, is there anything you did that really didn't work?
Mm, yes. So my short answer is yes. I'm just trying to pick which thing I think would be most relevant. Um, I think, and this is a healer thing, and this is an entrepreneur thing, is we get bored and tired of things long before our clients do. And so I think we have a tendency to kind of bedazzle things and change things and forever be this new offer and this new offer and this new offer. And I think one of the greatest things I came to finally, I wish I had gotten it sooner, but we get it when we get it, was the concept of creating your offer and you do it again and again and again and again. You kind of have your flagship thing that you're known for. For me, it was my 6 week microdosing immersion. And I've done, I think, 32 of them. But I just did them again and again and again. And it was so freeing because instead of all of that like leaky energy and creative energy going into a million different directions, constantly wanting to create new things or decorate what I already had, it's just very natural for entrepreneurs and healers to do that. Um, but kind of disciplining myself to keep the same program going and do it repeatedly, I learned and expanded so much because I could really sink into guideship itself and learning from the experience, growing my confidence, growing my experience. And I wasn't distracted by doing all different things. And people never got bored of it. um, so that would be something I think I've done a million times where I kind of got in my own way is I thought people wouldn't want to do this because we've been doing this for 6 months or a year at our studio and decided to change it when it's the depth that was the gold in something.
I love that so much. I needed to hear that today.
You manifesting generators do.
Right. Yes. Well, I know we're at time, and I wanted to see if there's anything else that Monique, did you have a question or another question from you, Ami?
I had one quick little question. I've been like busy typing away notes, so many great things. But I know you slightly touched on it, Laura, with like the imposter syndrome. But I was just wondering, I think like the biggest block for me is around like there's a lot around money and like pricing things and believing that people, I suppose, will want the things that I'm putting out into the world. Like I'm trying to just do like one foot in front of the other at the moment. If I think about that too hard, it almost puts me into like a freeze. So I'm just wondering if you ever had any of that stuff coming up with the different businesses that you've done.
Oh, lifelong, lifelong. I think it's healer's biggest edge. It really is. It's not being exceptional at what you do. It's never that. It's always mindset stuff. It's always mindset stuff. I think the biggest thing that can help again is surrounding yourself with other people who have that, right? It's contagious. Like you borrow their confidence and their courage until you kind of absorb it yourself. It just normalizes it. Some of the most powerful teachers, mentors, coaches I had, it was their confidence and they're like, I am worth this, right? That regardless of what it was they were teaching, just being in that presence, I was like, okay, it just kind of rubbed off on me. So if you're with and surrounded by people who are also in scarcity, that can be really tough. And I see that with families too. A lot of times when I've worked with a healer, when their family are very judgy about money or being abundant, they have that script running in the back of their mind that it's wrong as a healer to make money and to be abundant and to be resourced. So it's so important to be with other people in the presence of overcoming. It's really contagious in a beautiful way. Um, I also think recognizing a lot of times healers think that people are coming to them for what they do and what they can provide, which is true, but they're really coming to you for you. And most healers don't really know that. And so that's what people are paying for. Like, and I think that helps you reframe the value of what it is we're providing to people And this is really going to be true because people are really, really going to need support and guidance and help with their health and their wellness and their healing in the coming years. It's an opportunity for us to reframe that. So, for example, like in my studios, a lot of times the massage therapists thought that they were coming to get a massage. And 6 years later, after coming in once a month, every month to work with that therapist, it had little to do with the massage itself. The massage itself was wonderful and beneficial, but it was really that intimate connection and presence of the therapist that they were really connected to. So when you're thinking about your work and pricing your work, it's not about the product itself or the service itself. It's more about your relationship that you're providing with the person.
I love that so much. Monique, I'm so glad you're a part of this community because we get to hold each other up in this space. You're absolutely right. I think one of the best hopes we can have for AI is that everyone can find anything that they need in AI except a human. And that one-on-one relationship that we have, hopefully this is the glass half full point of view on AI right now. But I've heard a lot of people talk about this that's where more in person, more connection, more real time with people, with that emotional piece, the creative piece, the healer piece is actually going to become the essential piece because you can have an AI doctor if you want to. I mean, truly, you're going to get prescriptions through AI. You can get diagnoses, you can get herbal even suggestions and nutritional suggestions, but they will not fulfill the human connection that's needed. And I think, like you said, even more so in the future. And I think that's for a multi-pronged reason to really share who you are and be truly authentic with who you want to work with and why you want to work with them. And that love it in return. Allow those clients, those pets, those animals and humans to give you the energy you want back to so it can feed the essence, like you said, and feeding that goal of a successful business and a successful practice. I love that. Thank you, Kayse. You're such a wealth of knowledge and so many precious gems that you've shared. And I'm so grateful for your wisdom and your knowledge. And I'm so grateful that you're part of this community, the beginning of Holistic Business Folk as well. So thank you so much for your time and your energy and your wisdom and your love and your connection and your authenticity and your realness. I am so grateful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Sending you all my love. Thank you, Monique and Ami, for being here. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.